We have Jen Weigel presenting today. She has this wonderful new book. She's author of 4 different books. The latest one being Psychic Healers and Mediums, a journalist road trip and voices from the other side. It is for sale here. It's a wonderful book. I felt like I was on the road trips with her and having all these experiences, so excited to hear that. Jen is a journalist. She's a TV performer. She's a dynamo. She owns her own production company. Author of 4 books. She's an award-winning, Emmy award-winning broadcast journalist. She's worked for ABC, for NBC, WGN TV and radio, and WLS radio.
And if anybody is curious to see a medium live, we will be there. I'll be at the Victory Gardens if you live in the city on Monday night with Thomas John. Then we hit Naperville on Tuesday night, and then Wilmette on Wednesday night. So for me, the journey started into the paranormal. From a very young age, I was always curious about it. I just remember kind of sitting up at night wondering how it's possible for going to church. I was raised Christian. It depended who my dad was married to at the time, but we started off Lutheran, and then we hopped over to Episcopalian with wife number 2, and then by wife number 3, we were just congregational. We went twice a year, Easter, Christmas, kind of chilled out. But I was confirmed, I was baptized, and I would sit in church and wonder how people could be so mean Monday through Saturday, but then apologize on Sunday, and then suddenly everything's okay. It just didn't seem like the right game plan for living a really spiritual life. And so as I was a reporter since I was this tall. I was asking questions when people just wanted to sit and watch a movie. I remember in the beginning of Bambi, I'm like, well, that's not right. Wait, is she dead? I mean, the mom died, they killed the mom in the first 5 minutes. Now what? I mean, what else are they gonna do? They killed the mom. I mean, everyone's like, shh. I've been asking questions since I've known how to form sentences. And I believe it's the only way we can evolve is by asking questions. Because if we don't push the envelope, people, we would still think that the world is flat. Okay? We would still think it's okay to smoke on airplanes. Anyone else remember the smoking and non-smoking section of Eastern Airlines? How you doing? So that was because someone told us it was safe and we believed them. I was just having a conversation out in the lobby about why is it that more young people aren't curious about this? Well, I think we all sort of file into this pattern of following what the people in front of us are doing because it seems like the thing to do. And you don't want to make waves because then you'll get in trouble. And then you'll have to detention, or then you'll be punished, or people will say, just do it, right? But I was never okay with that. And I think it's really important not to be okay with that and to ask lots of questions. And that is how we gather data, and that is how we evolve. So I have to tell you, I'm a skeptic by nature. I'm a journalist, okay? We need our sources to be someone I can call on the landline. Thank you very much. Not something you're yapping to the ceiling about. So imagine how confusing it is for a journalist who's skeptical by nature to compile a lot of data about the paranormal. It was a little challenging at times, but I always knew there was more to it. There was more going on. So as I dug deeper and deeper and deeper into the process, I had so many experiences that were too hard to explain easily. And I tell people, look, I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm not asking you to walk out of here and start becoming a medium. I'm just going to tell you my stories, and you can decide for whatever you want. Believe whatever you want. It's up to you. Because the only way people shift their beliefs is by an experience. I truly feel that. They have to have it happen to them themselves. That's why these near-death experience survivors come back so completely altered and changed. They can never forget what they absorbed. They can never forget it. And so for me, I will never forget the moment that I had a medium tell me things that I was thinking moments before that nobody could have known. Or how they told me things in my future that I thought was impossible. Now, I'm a little still on the fence about the psychic thing because I believe we have free will. So at any moment we can change our trajectory and just pick up the phone and go to Tahiti and blow the whole thing out of the water. So for someone to tell me that I'm destined to, meet this person on this date in this cafe and blah, 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 we can always derail our own trajectory. We can change it at any moment. But I do think we have these destiny points, and let me tell you why I think that. When I was working for the Chicago Tribune, Diane Willis, the wonderful founder of this organization, who herself had a near-death experience, and if you don't know that, you need to know that, which is why she's so passionate about helping people not be afraid of death. And she just had a couple of procedures, and she didn't die, I hear, so we're in good shape. Or if she did die, she's coming back and she's got more stories for it. I interviewed in 2012, April 13th, 2012, Dr. Mary Neal. Raise your hand if you've heard of Dr. Mary Neal. Now, who saw Dr. Mary Neal here? So Dr. Mary Neal, for those who don't know, an orthopedic surgeon, had a near-death experience. She and her husband were kayaking, right, in a third world country, and her kayak flips and her knee gets stuck in a rock and she's without oxygen for 30 minutes. 30, okay? So Diana calls me and says, have I got an interview for you? And at the time I was covering innovations in business at the Tribune, but I had written a couple of books that dips into this pond, right? So my friends at the Tribune already thought I was a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I digress. She says, I've got an interview for you. You got to meet this woman, Dr. Mary Neal, surgeon, near-death experience, lived to talk about it. I thought, wow, I've got to meet this lady. But I can't guarantee the Tribune's going to publish her story. And she said, she's still game. I said, okay. I said, well, look, I'll put her in my next book, though, which I did. I put her in my third book, This Isn't the Life I Ordered. And I tell her story everywhere I go, because this is what happened to her. For those who don't know, and for those who do, I'd like to refresh you a couple of key phrases that she told me that altered my life forever. When Dr. Mary Neal walked into the lobby of the Chicago Tribune, I've never seen more beautiful blue eyes in my life. And when I say she was sparkling in her eyes, it was like heaven was coming through her eyeballs. I've never seen anything like it since, and I had never seen anything like it until that day. And so for Mary to come in, and she hugged me in that way that somebody really hugs you, like she's really present. You can tell everything she does is with intent. She's not phoning it in, okay? The 4 agreements, always do your best, Don Miguel Ruiz, she's doing her best in every way, even just walking into the Tribune lobby. So she walks in, and we sit down and we have a conversation. And I ask her everything, from religious beliefs, because she believes she was truly in the light, and not just in the light with anybody. She was chilling with Jesus. So there you go. And she was a convenient Christian, not a bang the drum, always at church kind of a gal. Just a convenient Christian, went on Sundays, and then everyone went back to their life on Mondays. So for her to be in the light and what she was told, she had to come back and tell her story to anyone who would listen. She was kicked out of heaven. Now, I have abandonment issues. I don't think there are enough shrinks in the world that could help me if I were kicked out of heaven. I'd be like, I thought everyone was welcome. Rah! But no, she was told she had to leave, come back here, and tell her story to anyone who will listen, specifically MDs, because the medical doctors seem to think they know everything. And so she was coming here to speak here at IANDS and go and hopefully speak to some doctors while she was here. And she goes around the country speaking to hospitals to try to touch other MDs with her story. She has had a full recovery. I mean, her entire leg had to be rebuilt, basically. And as she was floating above, watching her body get mangled by the water and, you know, out of oxygen, turning blue, the whole deal, dead, she was like, wow, look at that. I'm going to have to do that. And so, oh, that's going to be tough to put back together. I mean, her mind was out of pain, but watching everything as it was happening. And then she says, you know, that whole your light flashes before your eyes. You literally, what I have been told over and over and over again by the people I've interviewed who've died and lived to talk about it, or the mediums that I've interviewed that claim they talk to the other side. When you die, you have this sort of life review and you feel everything you put out. So there's no technical hell, right? There's no turn left for fiery inferno, turn right for all bliss in heaven and angels. You relive your life. You feel what you put out. So if you were my grandmother Virginia, and you cooked everybody food, and you hugged everybody, and you were the last one to bed and the first one up, you will have the most wonderful life review of everybody enjoying the love you gave. But if you had a life like my Grandpa John, where you taunted telemarketers, didn't bother to learn your grandchildren's names, and tried to start fights among the family, you're going to have a very different life review. You're going to see the upset that you caused like a ripple effect. And that, to me, is either heavenly or hellacious, depending on how you live your life. And what doesn't matter on the other side are all the judgments that we put on ourselves or on others. This is really important, people. There's nobody with a clipboard saying, Daniel, we're glad you're here, but boy, you are a jerk in the 3rd grade. Ooh, room for improvement. That's not what happens. There's nothing but love and unconditional bliss and connection when you get there, as everybody who's died and lived to talk about it can attest to. I recently interviewed this woman, PMH Atwater, for my podcast, I'm Spiritual Dammit. It's on WGN+. So if you're ever curious, you're in the car a lot, or you want to just listen to something, just Google or go to my website, jennweigel.com, and click on, I think the podcast is the first thing that pops up, but it's on there, or WGN. So PMH Atwater had 3 near-death experiences. She's like the female version of Moody, right? So we have Raymond Moody, who started and coined the near-death experience term in the 70s, and then PMH had these 3 near-death experiences within about a 3-month period. And when I interviewed her, I said, no offense, but honey, you needed a new doctor. So she basically came to embrace the research side of things and loves the focusing on children who've had near-death experiences, mainly 5 and under, so really precious children. And she said that there was a group of children, and again, these children have no way of going to the library, getting books about near-death experiences, comparing notes. A lot of the doctors and skeptics say, oh, they're just reading up on it, and it's a lack of oxygen, and that's why they're seeing a light, and blah, blah, blah. Dr. Mary Neal said, I am a scientist. I know what happens when you're 3 minutes without oxygen. She was 30, okay? She's a living miracle. We can believe in miracles and praying for miracles through our church umbrella, but come somewhere else out in the regular world and suddenly it's a little weird. Why? Dr. Mary Neal is a living miracle. I've seen her, and I know she died and lived to talk about it, right? So that, to me, is just fascinating. But PMH says, when she talks to these little children, they said, and this stuck, and excuse me if I get choked up because it's so beautiful. When children are on the other side and they see people praying, they can see the prayers. And they look like rainbows going from one heart to the recipient's heart. That is what a prayer looks like on the other side. From a children's perspective, right? A child's perspective, over and over and over again. So think about that picture as you go through your day. Are you going to send a rainbow from your heart? Even if you think you're right. I have so many people who just want to argue these days because of our political climate. And I get it. I'm not telling the people to lay down and go against all their beliefs and not stand for what they believe in. But you can stand for justice and still send rainbow from your heart. Do you know how many rainbows I've been sending to our president lately? I'm like, hello, please send some more rainbows. I mean, you have to. Because the only thing that puts out hate and fear is love. That is it. That is the water that puts out hate and fear. And here's the thing. I interviewed, and I'm going to go through the chapters and take a highlight from each one because I really want you guys to get some of those nuggets. Dr. Paul Selig. He's chapter 6 of this book. Paul Selig, he was a professor. Actually, he's not an MD. He might have a PhD. And he got his master's at Yale. Okay, so he's no schlub. He taught at NYU for 25 years. And this guy woke up late, like in his late 20s. And when I say late, it's not like he was 4 years old and seeing dead people. This guy was minding his own business and he has this epiphany. And starts getting downloads, like channeled information. And now he works with these 9 guides that talk to him. And it's cool because they have different voices and personalities. Like the one that I saw was like Richard Burton on the Globe stage in England, it's like, wah! It's hilarious. And so then the guy just goes back to normal right afterwards and he's talking to you and he has such respect from his colleagues, the theologians that he rubs elbows with, the MDs, the PhDs. This is a real McCoy, right? And he said to me that one of the things the guides told him that really stuck And when something sticks, it's like, let's print up a t-shirt. Fear and love cannot coexist. Period. You cannot be a loving person and then judge somebody in the next breath. They are two different vibrations. Judgment is fear. Oh no, I hope I'm okay. Am I enough? Oh, do they like me? Oh, geez, they better call me. They better include me. We all want to be appreciated, validated, understood, accepted, and loved. But the bottom line is we already are by source. So as Sylvia was talking about self-love, I thought about that. If we could all get the memo that we have to put our self-love vest on and reconnect to source, because that is always at our disposal. We won't need anything outside of ourselves to fill us up, which is what we think we need with family gatherings, with, wine, chocolates, shopping, you name it. Beer at a Cubs game, whatever it is. You really have it all in your toolbox, in your connection to source, right? But it's when we get away from that that we feel disconnected and we become a whirling dervish, and then we need things outside of ourselves to validate who we are inside. So fear and love can't coexist. That one really hit for me. So anytime you are mad at something or someone, ask yourself right then, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? A guy cut me off and I was like, I swear my life review is going to be people flipping me off in traffic, because that is what I do all the time. And I realized the reason I do it is because I'm afraid I'm going to hit them, or I'm afraid they're going to hit me. Or a kid cuts in front and I'm yelling at the kid, I'm afraid I'm going to hit the kid. There's always fear attached to anger. Always. That is all it is. So if somebody's not nice to you at a family gathering, I think about this because Thanksgiving is always a trigger point for my family, and everybody just not only brings the sweet potatoes, but all their baggage to go with it. We talk about Diane's blue bag. My family has suitcases they just put on the table and then let it all out. And the bottom line is that if we decide to hold on to a past grudge, it's really anytime we go backwards in time or forwards in time with worry, backwards in time with regret, forwards in time with worry, we are off center. We are no longer, we're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So stop and ask yourself, if you're afraid of something and you're thinking about something, is it in the past or is it a worry about the future? If it's not right in present time, stop. It does you no good but take you off center. And then you tip over. It does you no good. But that's because we get stuck in our heads. And I get it. Because I'm a journalist, I'm always in my head. I'm analyzing everything and I'm trying to find the reasons for why things are the way they are. Guess what? Sometimes things just suck. Sometimes things are fantastic. But we take ourselves out of the fantastic moment to worry about why we didn't do that before or when we are going to do that ahead. Stop. So chapter 1 is Thomas John, the Manhattan Medium. I was introduced to Thomas by my publisher. He actually called me up and said, have I got a medium for you? I'm like, if I had $1 for every time I hear that. People think I'm like the Angie's List for these people. I guess I've kind of become one. But Thomas, and so I met with Thomas, and again, I have the litmus test of if you can't Google it and someone tells it to me, then I'm impressed. Because there's a lot of stuff you can find out about me online, but tell me something that you can't find and I'm all ears. And so right before I went to meet with Thomas, I was selling my home and the buyer did not seem to understand the term as-is sale. So they came back from the inspection and wanted new electric and a new roof, and I was like, and what part of as-is do you not understand? So I was on the phone with my lawyer right before meeting with Thomas John, and I said, kill the deal. And he was like, what? I said, kill the deal. I don't want to do business with these people. There will be other buyers. If it's meant to be, it will be. I let go, I surrender, but I do not want to tangle with these people. I'm standing in my power and I'm done. And he was like, okay. Slam. And I looked up and I said, hey, Dad. Because I talk to my dead dad a lot. By the way, I was not married to Tim Weigel. A lot of people ask me if that was my husband. I'm like, oh. Like I said, I was in his wedding because I wasn't his bride. I was his flower girl. But I talked to him a lot because he died 16 years ago, and it's hard to imagine that it's been that long, but it has. So I'm like, Dad, if he brings up that, I'll be impressed. Sure enough, we sit down. About 10 minutes in, he's like, did you just kill a real estate deal? Like today? Your dad is saying you don't want to do business with those people. I was like, nicely done. Okay, I'm listening. And that's what it is. When Dr. Mary Neal was in the light, she was told that every time you have those, that's weird, coincidence moments, take note of it, write it down, put it in a journal. For me, I take pictures on Instagram because I find heart-shaped things. The day I met her, April 13th, 2012, I couldn't come see her here the next day because my son was having a Star Wars party and I had my priorities. It was his birthday. But I saw heart-shaped things like gangbusters. And the first thing I saw was this heart-shaped mud blob, like right out my front door. So I took a picture. I was like, thanks. Because she says, acknowledge it and it will happen so often. The law of probabilities will not be able to explain how often it happens. You have to document it and say thank you. Because then they know your signal is on. You send a flare up to the universe like that and the signals will come down like gangbusters. So I challenge all of you to do that because Dr. Mary Neal did the same thing when she was here. She challenges all of us to take note of those coincidences. And then the other thing she was told is that when you're up there in the light looking down at all of this, there's light and there's dark, right? There's fear and there's love, that's it. Those two vibrations, light and dark. And it's a beautiful pattern, like an oriental rug. A beautiful dining room oriental rug that was at grandma's, right? Like that is what it looks like. And there's light and there's dark, but it makes sense from up there. We need the light and the dark, believe it or not. So they say up there. And so while we're down here, it's like, ow, this sucks, I'm getting snagged, wah. I'm getting stepped on, me, victim, victim, victim. But if you actually trust that you're part of a bigger picture and that the GPS from up there looks a lot better, and every day you wake up and say, how can I serve? And that's what Dr. Mary Neal does. She says, I wake up every day and said, in God I trust, how can I serve? Show me where I'm going today. And she was told she was going to the Chicago Tribune to meet with me, not even knowing if the article would be published. And they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. The Chicago Tribune would not publish, I'll say this on YouTube, would not publish an article on Dr. Mary Neal, who went off to have one of the highest selling books to heaven and back, became a New York Times bestseller. She was on Anderson Cooper. Sorry, Tribune, we missed the exclusive. We could have gotten it, but they were too afraid. Okay? Fear rules our media, which is why I'm so glad to now work independently of that fear, because every decision was based on fear. And you can't coexist with love in that vibration. It was so toxic and unfortunate. But I ended up publishing Mary's story in my third book, and I tell that story to everyone with ears, pretty much, because it impacted my life. Because the day after I met her, I have been seeing heart-shaped things ever since. And if you follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, you will see, just yesterday I was doing an event up in Highland Park at Billy Corgan's tea shop, Madame Zuzu's. We had an event with a medium, and talking about intuition and how everybody has it. And as I stepped outside, there was a mud-shaped blob. I'm like, all right, well done. Poof. Thank you. Parking lot, there was another one on my way there. Thank you, acknowledge. Thank you. Thank you for showing me that there's something going on. Thank you for showing me there's more going on than I can see or touch. That you are there to guide accordingly. That's what it's about. We are all being guided every day. If you wake up and say, show me where to go, I will serve. Show me how to serve. And then tune out the chatter and listen to the answer that comes in. So after Thomas, chapter 2 is Echo Bodine, who's coming here in August. She'll be the speaker in August. And Echo is part of a family in Minneapolis, fabulous, fascinating family. All the siblings are intuitive. But it hit them out of nowhere as well. And Echo teaches how we can develop our intuition. And Echo says to me, everyone has it. We're all born with it. It's just whether or not we want to develop that muscle and really take it on. And we all will use it differently. Someone was talking about Kundalini. Somebody might see auras. Somebody might hear things, clairaudience. Some might see things, clairvisual, right? Clairvoyance, it's called. Clairsentience. You might sense it. Claircognizant, you just know. You know when you just know. Claircognizance, you have it. We all do. But what happens? We get into our head. Then our head goes, that's stupid, that's weird. Why would we do that? That's odd. So intuition is the still small voice, that's one of Echo's books, that whispers in your ear. It's the bird that flies in front of your car out of nowhere, like, whoa, I haven't thought about Adam in forever. I wonder how he's doing. Boom, your phone rings, it's Adam. You just got an intuitive hint that it was coming. That's weird. It's not weird. It's all connected. So Echo Bodine, amazing woman, she is trying to teach everybody with a pulse to develop their intuition. Because she says, my goal is to be out of work. So everybody's just walking around doing this on their own. Which would be wonderful if we could all trust our intuition that much. But she uses it for everything. Someone calls her up and asks her to do a talk. She'll get quiet. She'll go. She'll breathe into her heart. This is the Control-Alt-Delete that we can all do. And you know this, Elizabeth. We all know this. Breathing into your heart, picturing air going into your heart. Our heart is 5 times stronger than any other organ in our body. There's a thing called heart math. If you haven't read those books, they're fantastic. Whenever you find yourself in a whirling dervish mode, breathe into your heart for 30 seconds. And think of something positive. And if you can do that for a minute 30, you literally can change the programming in your brain to go from stress to peace. That is a medical fact. Jill Taylor, who wrote My Stroke of Insight, wonderful book, brain specialist from Harvard, has a stroke. Her whole left side of her brain starts shutting down, and she knows how and why. The left side of the brain is communication and language and all of that, right? The right side is your creative and your senses, your spidey senses. So here her left side of her brain is shutting down, and she's losing all of her science, her language. She can't speak, but people are speaking to her. So it's like she doesn't know what they're saying, but she's hearing noises. So imagine how that was frustrating for a brain specialist from Harvard to not be able to form sentences as everyone comes in to treat her for her stroke. And they are treating her like she's stupid, like she's lost all of her intelligence. But the reality is she's got it all. She just needs to learn how to... She said she compares it like a dog feels, where you can sense everyone's emotions. She said everybody would walk into the room and she knew right away whether they had good intentions or bad. They thought she was smart or stupid. They loved her or they were annoyed by her. Even though she couldn't understand the words, she had the sense of what they were about. Okay? So imagine, we all have that sense, but we know the words. So she had to relearn all of her language, relearn all of her math, her science. She did it. She's amazing. It's an incredible story, but get this. Her mom comes in. She doesn't know who her mom is. I guess they had some rough bats, a little up and down. Anybody have that with their parent? Hello? Yeah? Howard, seriously? We have to let it go, don't we?
Yes.
Anywho, her mom walks in, and all she feels is love, love, love. Because this mother, imagine if you're a mother and you have a child and you see your child suffering and not able to speak. And so all this love and compassion is gushing from her heart. And Jill is like, wow, this woman's amazing, whoever she is, hugging her. Finds out it's her mom. So guess what? All those arguments that they'd had, Thanksgiving, 1994, all gone. All gone, completely wiped out of the database. No frustrations, no disagreements, no judgments, a completely free slate, as if somebody walked into you, to meet you for the very first time. That is what she chose from that moment on, from her stroke on. No more from the past. I'm moving forward in love, and the people that come into my life are going to feed me, not deplete me. That is what she learned in all of her travels since now. This happened many years ago, a few years ago. And she has been going around talking about how she lives her life with purpose, because there are 2 people in your life, and this is it. They either give you energy or they drain your energy. That's it. It goes back to fear and love. We all know those energy vampires. Dr. Judith Orloff, she's in this book. She's chapter 7, I think. Dr. Judith Orloff, she's so cool. She wrote Positive Energy, which is a New York Times bestseller. She has a new book out about these empaths for survival guide for empaths. And she was raised in Beverly Hills to 2 MD parents. And she was so intuitive as a kid. You guys know Judith? Are you thinking about it?
We're just talking about it. We're just
Empaths.
Yeah, total empath. Empath party of 3, we'll get lunch. Yeah, I'll bring my son, he's there too. But a lot of us are, right? So we absorb other people's angst, okay? And so Judith Orloff was raised by these 2 medical doctors in Hollywood, and she's predicting when the neighbors are gonna get divorced, and she's talking to her dead uncle, and all this intuitive stuff, and the parents are like, shh, don't tell anybody. Well, she couldn't not tell anybody. So she keeps talking about it. They institutionalized her. So as a teenager, she was really lost. So she starts partying, doing drugs, because what else is she going to do? She's got all these gifts. Her parents don't believe her. They put her in an institution. It went from bad to worse. So she got out and she realized, she met a psychiatrist who said, hey, you're highly intuitive. Use it. Help people. It's not a problem. It's a gift. She had to hear that from an actual MD/psychiatrist to embrace it, because that's her life, right? MD, those are her parents. She doesn't want to disappoint her parents. So she herself goes to medical school. She's now a psychiatrist. She's got, 7, 8 bestsellers. And she's going around helping people work with their empathic selves. And a lot of it is putting up boundaries. We have to put up boundaries for those energy vampires in our life. And everybody has an energy vampire, whether they're at work or in your family or in your home or your neighbor. They're the person that comes in and drains the life out of you after 5 minutes. So if you don't protect yourself, you have to put up a double-sided mirror. You have to breathe into your heart for 1:30. That's what Jill Taylor said. Literally, science proves that when you breathe with an intent of love to dissolve the fear, for 1:30, you dissolve the fear. So for people who go around in fear all the time, Dr. Taylor, who had the stroke, says that is actually a choice, because you are reliving those thoughts that are the familiar pattern. It's like when you go to work, you go the way you know. You go the familiar way. Even if it's not the fastest way, you turn left, you turn right, put on your blinker, you're in your pattern. If you have a pattern of fear, you just continue the familiar pattern. But if you want to retrain your brain, it's malleable. You can. So stop being victim to those fears and choose, even if it's a legitimate fear. Car coming might hit me. Okay, get out of the way. I'm not saying you can think something for 1:30 and not get hit by the car, okay? I'm talking about those fears that are in our heads, of things that aren't even coming into pass, that we make real. Choose differently and rewire those thoughts in 1:30, and you can. It's fascinating, and it's science. So for people, it's like, well, I can't do that because I can't pay the bills, and my husband left me, and the dog hates me, and it's like, woe is me, all day long. We all know those people, and I'm not saying that it's not painful to have loss. I've had an incredible loss. I've watched 3 people take their last breath. I've gone through a divorce. I am raising an 11-year-old. It's hard. Life is hard, but we can choose whether we stay in pain or we embrace love. And that is the truth. When people call you up and say, how are you doing? And you're like, That's how I was today. I'm like, I just moved and everything's hard. And I was like, stop it. The move is over. I'm good. The flying squirrels are no longer in my house, and the raccoon is gone. Life is good. Life is good. We have to go there. So after Echo Bodine, I went back to meet her brother Michael and her sister Nikki. Nikki is a medium. Michael is a psychic. Echo does past life healings and hands-on healings and psychic work. She's kind of like the ultimate combo platter. So I go back, and again, in these chapters, I bring with me a friend that they can't Google ahead of time. So they can read up on me and that experience, I document all that, that's fine. But then I bring a friend, nameless friend A, and they get to get a reading as well. And then I document that as well. Because again, being the journalist, I want to have as much evidence as possible so people can judge what they want to judge. Conchetta Bertoldi's chapter 5, she has so many wonderful insights. I mean, her mother was raised in a Catholic orphanage and was beaten, raped, denied medical treatment in a Catholic orphanage. So for Conchetta, she was an agnostic atheist. I mean, she was just sort of like, I don't want to know anything that has to do with the church because you almost killed my mother. And it took a lot of rebuilding for her to get her faith back. That just because those Catholics weren't spiritual or helpful or loving, it doesn't mean that others who embrace the faith are. And now she is just spiritual under the giant umbrella of, there is one God that welcomes all religions and there's no wing over here or wing over there. Although you can, apparently, according to a lot of the mediums that I've interviewed and some of the dead people who came back, if you are a practicing faithful Catholic and you want to go to Mass, you absolutely can. If you're Buddhist, you can do what it's, pick your thing, right? It's what you love to do. If you like to knit, you'll knit. If you like Victorian houses, you're gonna live in one. It's all the things that make you happy and then some, right? And you can pick your favorite era. Like what was your favorite age? You can pick that, apparently. Oh no. So Conchetta, and then Paul Selig, I talked about, the channeler, Judith Orloff, and then Carolyn Mace. Carolyn Mace, the medical intuitive. She was my final chapter in this journey. Carolyn is interesting because her gift hit her in her 30s. Here she is, an editor, minding her own business, smoking a cigarette, drinking coffee in a parking lot, and someone walks by her and she knows why they're sick. She's like, whoa. Now, she always had a sort of heightened sense of intuition as a child. She said she could drive by strangers' houses and know what was going on inside. Like a bat, her radar was just hyper-tuned. But it's not like she used it for her job. She was an editor and a writer and a journalist for a while. So when this medical intuition thing started kicking in, she thought, well, gosh, I have this incredible ability for something I had no desire to do. She didn't ask for this gift, it just showed up. So Carolyn Mace, when I met her for her book, Sacred Contract, she's written Anatomy of the Spirit. Hard to believe that's 25 years Anatomy of the Spirit came out. That was such a game changer for me. Yeah, I love that book. And she said, I asked her just recently, we were out to dinner, and I said, I always ask people this, like looking back at your body of work, is there anything you would have written differently? Is there anything that you would have changed? Anything you wish you'd done differently? And she said, there's tons of stuff I wish I'd done differently, but Anatomy of the Spirit's a perfect book. I was like, okay, mic drop.
Right.
She knows what she knows, and she's awesome. But yeah, so Carolyn can look at someone, and she teamed up with Norm Shealy at Harvard Medical School. So again, a Harvard medical doctor, brain surgeon, calls Carolyn Mace in Oak Park, Illinois when he can't heal somebody. Hey, Carolyn, can you look at this guy, Greg? He's got nervousness and back pain. She's like, okay, Greg, let me think. Oh yeah, kidney problems. He's afraid of not getting approval by his dad. Most of our ailments are emotionally related. And if we could heal our hearts, we could heal our bodies. Now, of course, there are the environmental issues. Those come into play. I'm not saying you could drink a bunch of lead water and not be harmed if you're saying kumbaya all day long. We have to be smart about this. But how is it that somebody can be exposed to secondhand smoke and get lung cancer and somebody else can be and get nothing, right? We have to be conscious of what we're telling our bodies on a daily basis, because if it's such a high percentage of it is water, and water, as we know, can be manipulated through thought and intent, then what are our thoughts and our intents with our bodies every single day? Carolyn thinks about that. Before she goes to bed, she prays. She prays like she's crazy. Take care of my body. Heal me while I sleep. Show me how when I wake up. In fact, there was a prayer that she gave me in this book. I wanted to see, what the heck is this? By the way, has anyone else got this when they were 40? They suddenly have to wear glasses? I had perfect vision my whole life, and then I hit 40, and it's like, guess what, lady? Yep. Psych.
Yep.
So inconvenient.
Yep.
But Carolyn gives this wonderful prayer. Here she goes. She says, I call in the angels and I say, take me out of my body and repair it while I sleep. Take me with you someplace. Repair my soul in the night and repair my body while I sleep. And then let the graces pour into you. She says one of the most important and wonderful prayers of Teresa of Avila is, "Hover over me, God. Keep me still and keep me in grace." That is all, she said. You don't need anything more than that. It's pretty powerful stuff. So on this journey, I've met a lot of people who claim to have a lot of answers. For me, I like to know there is more going on. I do believe that truly the soul lives on. The body is just a shell. It's a rental, guys. It's just a rental. We're just borrowing a condo, and then we move on. And once we let go of the condo and move on, it's unconditional love and grace. And fear can't live there, just love. And so if we go through our life and our day trying to choose more fear than love, the vibration of that choice is higher. But here's the kicker, guys. Not everybody in your life wants you to heal. Because then what? Who are they going to complain to? They don't have an audience. And guess what? Not everybody wants to heal. Because if you're well, then you have to be depended on. If you're sick, you can complain to all your friends and they show up and give you flowers and cookies and lasagnas. Victims have a place, they have a role, and they don't want to leave that role, by golly, because it works well for them. Oh, gosh, my knee's kind of hurting, I better get a knee replacement. Then people will come by and see me and check on me. That's why some people stay sick. And it's a cycle. It's a subconscious cycle. But people are always asking for approval. And hey, there's a subconscious way for me to do it. I'll get sick. Or I'll stay sick. But if you choose to be well, here's what's going to happen. And I know this because I went through this transformation. And I just watched as the friends that couldn't handle the vibration disappeared. They just fall off. And it's nothing personal. They just stop calling. They don't want to hear about the near-death experience person you talk to. They don't want to hear that they can change their brain in a minute 30. They want to bitch about their coworkers. They want to complain about their husbands. They want to bitch and moan. And there's no fun and grace and ease. What fun is that? So, what happens is it's like a music note. I'm friends with this musician, Billy Corgan, who did this event for us last night, and this is what he says it is. It's like when you strike a note, a beautiful note, it's a chord, right? When you have 5 notes in a chord, and it sounds harmonious, then let's say one of those notes moves up, that'd be you. And all those other notes stay the same, that's gonna sound pretty bad. Yep. So those other notes either have to move up or move down. But they gotta move. They cannot stay the same. And you'll be amazed at those who do rise up and meet you. But if we choose to stay at the same chord just because it's comfortable and we don't want to upset the other notes in the chord, we will get sick. As Carolyn May says, our sacred contract is not being honored. You know it in your bones. You need to jump. I did not want to move in the middle of a book tour. That was not my plan. But the universe told me it was by putting a raccoon in my kitchen, going through the snacks. He was like, "What's up?" And flying squirrels in my attic. And I was like, okay. And then I still was making excuses. I'm like, oh, we'll trap them. It'll be fine. Did you know squirrels are protected in Evanston? You can't kill them. You have to trap them. And so you have to set the, don't get me started. I'm not saying I want to kill squirrels. I'm just saying there's a whole protocol where you have to, and I can't just have regular squirrels. Jen's got to have flying squirrels. And then the roof started leaking. I mean, it was literally, I always say, one thing is a tap on the shoulder, 2 things is a strong shove, and when you get a 3rd, it's an anvil over the head, people. So when the roof started leaking after the flying squirrels, I was like, okay, I got it, where am I moving? 2 days later, I get an email from a friend from Zillow, poof. Oh, I guess I'm moving there. And within days, it was locked in. When something's meant to be, people, it is ease and grace. Bam, 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 bam. It's like the lane opens in traffic and you're in the express lanes. And that's what it is. So I knew it was supposed to happen, but I wasn't happy about it. I'm like, I don't want to pack boxes. I don't want to go up 3 flights. What? No, I had to do it. And I'm okay. But they have a plan. So surrender to the GPS. that they have involved for you. They have a whole thing laid out. And at the end, Michael Bodine said his version of hell would be to watch his life review and have all of his guides show him the opportunities that he didn't take because of fear. Because of, I don't know, it's the fear of the unknown. I'll just go with what I know. That's easier. I don't want to rock the boat. Sometimes you have to get shoved out of the boat. The greatest growth comes from the biggest disappointments. I watched my father die. Did not want that to happen at the age of 30, and he was 56 years old. But apparently we planned this. When we were creating our lives, and we had this opportunity to come and live as father and daughter, I was going to keep telling his story. And from the other side, he was going to tell me a lot of cool things too. It's given me about 4 books worth of material, I'd say. So he's still a Mike Hogg from the other side, I say with grace. No, it's truly, Thomas John does these spiritual circles just like Rebecca Rosen. And if I'm on the same floor of where it's taking place, my dad shows up. So I've been banned from Thomas John's spirit circles just because my dad wants to come through like, hey, this is what happened on Tuesday. Now he's a pro at talking through mediums because they're all in my life. But here's the thing also, and I want to share this with you. Our children are growing into this and coming into this world highly intuitive. This is where we need to focus our energies. As much as I'm talking about sending prayers to rainbows to our president, we need to send prayers and rainbows to our children who come in intuitive and don't have the toolbox for dealing with this. My son has been able to see my dead dad since he was 2. My dad died 5 years before he was born. So, there my dad's calling now. He's calling Howard. I told you he was a Mike Hogg. Very long distance. I actually had a dream. I was praying to him for something. I was doing my one-woman show. Say that fast. You want me to talk to him, Howard? What is it? What's for dinner? See? There's this thing called texting. You can say, I'm in an auditorium. Okay, Tim. I had a dream. I was praying to my dad. I was in this one-woman show, that phrase, I can't seem to speak without flubbing. And all the lights were wrong and everything was going wrong. And so I was like, geez, Dad, can you just give me some help with the technical support of the show? Nothing's working out. Blah, blah, blah. So that night I have this dream and I'm walking and I'm wandering across this field. And it was sort of like a Merchant Ivory film. Like it was like, ooh, I can smell the sea. And I'm like, ooh, this is fun. And then I heard like a bar. My dad loved the Billy Goat Tavern. And this was literally like the old Billy Goat Tavern, but on the sea. It was so great. I'm like, I know it, but I don't know it. So I walked into the bar and I get there and there's one chair available at the bar. And the bartender goes, oh, hey, Jen. And he pulls up this old rotary phone, like from the 70s, with like the cord. And I sit down and he goes, it's for you. And I'm like, how about that? Who is this guy? How did he know I was coming? So I pick up the phone and I'm like, hello. It was my dad's voice. Clear as if he were standing next to me. He was like, Jen! Hey, how's it going? Listen, I know you've been like really anxious this week, but I just gotta tell you, everything's gonna be fine. You gotta relax, just chill out. I mean, it was just, I was holding this like, and then he's like, I would have called you sooner, but you know how hard it is to make a call from here? Like, okay, thanks. And I hung up the phone. But that's the thing, the vibration up there is so high and we are so ensludged down here. That is why it's so hard to make a connection. And what the mediums that I've met do is they have these antennae that easily reach that vibration easier than we do. So it is sort of like, I mean, how is it that we can have a radio and a radio wave hits our car and we're okay with that? That's believable. But a medium? Weird. I mean, your television. How do we get 500 channels from something in the air that travels and lands in a satellite? That's believable, but mediumship's just too weird. And the other thing too is that all of the Bible is talking to dead people. But why did it stop then? It's still going on. I have a Lutheran pastor who told me, if people, and actually a Roman Catholic priest told me that basically I am totally on board with If people are saying that this is the devil's work, they're not reading the Bible, because the Bible is all these instances of speaking to the other side. And same with a Lutheran pastor who said, look, greater gifts than these you will have. That's what Jesus taught, right? Greater things than this you will do. It's Corinthians, it's all the gifts of the Spirit. Empower yourself to be the healer that you can be within. That is what he was teaching. So we can all be mediums, but the reason why it's so hard, and we have to have these dreams where an old rotary phone is giving you the message, because we aren't at that high vibration automatically. It takes a lot to get there. And if you're stuck in fear and worry, it's taking you down to the first notch of the ladder right there. When you're in love and grace, you're higher up, you're closer, you can hear them better. So if you're in grief from a loved one passing, you have to get higher on the ladder to hear them. And the only way you're going to get higher on the ladder is through love and grace, not fear and anger. So I challenge all of you as you leave today, and I say challenge, that sounds like it's a test. That's a terrible way to put it. I pose this to you as you leave today. Keep track of those coincidences, and they'll happen so much more often than you can ever imagine. And as you do, gather those miracles up and thank God, the universe, whatever the heck you believe in, Aunt Tilly, for doing that and for helping you hear it and helping you feel it. Because the only reason we get scared throughout our life is because we feel like we might be alone in this, right? Yeah. We're never alone, even if technically we are not married or whatever it might be, or with others at dinner. Having dinner alone is not a death sentence, it's peace. You are always connected to the grace that is available to you if you open your heart and go there. You just have to welcome it and feel it and let it in. I want to leave you with this one story. I think it was the last time I spoke here. I went and spoke at the the Church of the Spirit, which is the spiritualist church in Chicago on Central Park. If you've never been, it's a wonderful experience. And they give spiritual readings at the end of the church service, and it's song, story, song, story, song, story. Some Reiki healers in the back, and then, it's great. And then everyone gets a medium reading. It's a great way to spend a Sunday. I took my son. It was a lot of fun. Although Maurice, the spiritualist minister, told my son he needs to try harder at math, and he's like, I didn't want to go back. So I went to that Church of the Spirit for the first time, and one of the spiritualist ministers was named Rick Siegel. And I'm going to get a little weepy thinking about this, but we've since lost Rick. But Rick was my first agent. I had a voiceover agent when I got out of college. And Rick was the coolest. And the thing about Rick is he had this secret that he was a medium, and it was running his family. He kept it on the side. It was like he was the agent extraordinaire, but had this side business as doing house parties as a medium. And so when I saw Rick there at the Church of the Spirit, it was like, what? Ah! And so we're sitting there hugging each other, and he said, yeah, once I came out of being a medium, and I left the agency, and changed my whole life, and got married to Hal. He came out of the closet. Everything changed. And so Rick, flip-flopped his life, and we're sitting there on stage at Church of the Spirit, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I have to tell one story. What story should I tell? And so I'm sitting there and I'm going, God, give me the story that I'm supposed to tell. God, give me the story that I'm supposed to tell. And I'm trying to open my heart, get out of my head, blah, 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 blah. And then my grandfather pops into my mind. Now, I mentioned earlier that my grandfather liked to taunt telemarketers for sport. That is true. And he loved to cause fights and friction. But he was also kind of a genius in his own way. He started Weigel Broadcasting in Chicago and wanted Chicago to have a station where everybody could have a TV show because of the diversity in Chicago. So he let Polish cooks and bullfighters all have a show, It's still a diverse network now on Channel 26, but when Grandpa started it, he really had a vision. So I thought about my grandpa, and my stomach went into knots. Now, my grandpa died a year after my dad, so he's been gone a while. And think about this. If you think about someone that left a mark, right? And then you physically feel that pain, you're reliving the pain. And I thought, my gosh, this is terrible. Grandpa is dead, and I'm still in pain over the fights he stopped. What? And I'm sure he's not suffering wherever he is, but I sure am. This is terrible. I got to get out of this. So when I was driving once with my son, we were going up to Wisconsin to visit family, I thought about my grandpa, and I chose to think of his face and send a rainbow from my heart to his. Send love straight to him. Boom. Just shower him with love. And I saw his face, and he looked tired, actually. And then I sent all this love, and it was the most incredible feeling. It was like a warm bath came over me. You know, like the flash dance bucket, like, psh, just like, whoa. And it was soothing and calming, and I got goosebumps, and I cried. And it was amazing, and my son was in the back seat, and he's a huge birder. He loves birds, like a budding ornithologist. And he was like, Mom, look up. And we looked up. There were 41 broad-winged hawks circling. Now, I'm like, I know the difference between a hawk and a crow and a seagull. I've never seen anything like this. We had to pull over the Subaru, look up, and my son counted, I think he said there were 42. But either way, over 40 beautiful broad-winged hawks swarming. So of course the journalist in me had to go call an ornithologist and find out if this is even possible. And sure enough, broad-winged hawks do this. It's very rare, but it's called a kettle, where the hawks gather in the winter to find a warm spot, and it rises them higher with no effort. So they don't have to fly. They get over the hot wave, and it takes them up without having to work. Think of the symbolism of that. As I'm giving love to the memory of my grandfather, and I see 41 hawks going higher without effort. And the hawk is the Native American symbol for spirit and messages from the other side in heaven. So it was a wonderful experience. So here I am back to Church of the Spirit. I'm sitting there with Rick, and I'm thinking about the hawk story. Maybe I should tell Grandpa and the 41 hawks. And Rick leans over and whispers in my ear and says, your grandpa's here. Tell the hawk story. Get out of my head, you. Jeez. All right, I'll tell the hawk story. So we all have that ability. Please open up to it. Turn it on. Think of E.T. I just rewatched that movie. What an incredibly brilliant movie. Brilliant. I tell my son now, turn on your heart light, kid. Turn on your heart light, like Neil Diamond sang so beautifully. It will diffuse the negativity if you come from a radiant heart. And we can choose it at any moment. We can go to fear or we can go to heart. So if you get in fear, don't judge it. Be like, oh yeah, look what I did. I did that again because that's so familiar. Awesome. All right, now let's choose differently. Let's go to love. And then shoot me emails. Especially, I love it, when people send me emails because they're in chapter 4, page whatever, and this made sense to them and it helped them get through blah, blah, blah. That's how I get all my material for my next books. It's from readers. It's true. It's true. So I want to read just the intro for you guys, and then I'm going to let you ask some questions and be on our way, because I've pretty much blabbed enough to all of you. You're going to be really tired of the sound of my voice. But here, I'm just going to leave you with this intro, because I think it sums up sort of the journey of what's going on here. For the past couple of decades, I've interviewed many people who claim to have unusual talents. Some call themselves intuitive healers, others profess to be mediums with the ability to talk to the dead. And then there are the psychics who want to tell me what happens next Tuesday. As a journalist, I'm naturally skeptical of anything that can't be proven through traditional sources, someone you can see, hear, touch, or call on the phone. Still, I've had many encounters through my interviews that have left me scratching my head. This curiosity keeps me up at night and inspires me to dig deeper into my research as I continue my quest for clarity. My journey into the world of mediums, psychics, and healers is a personal one. I lost my dad to brain cancer in 2001 and quickly realized that grief is a very pricey business. I felt it was my duty to investigate those offering grief support in the metaphysical world and pass on the information to others who are struggling with the loss so they could avoid wasting their time and money. Some colleagues think I've lost my mind for even venturing into these conversations. I like to remind them that smoking used to be a universally acceptable practice, complete with doctors appearing in commercials lighting up camels. It's called, What Cigarette Do You Smoke, Doctor? Google that one on YouTube. Today we have ads saying secondhand smoke causes cancer in our cats. Our version of truth is based on the information that has been collected up until that point. We continue to evolve as we gather more evidence. I think there is a spiritual evolution happening as well, a kind of collective consciousness or inquisitive spirit that's percolating in living rooms, businesses, and schools all over the world. I'm meeting people who are questioning everything they've known to be true on a regular basis, either because they've experienced something that they can't explain, or they have an intuition that they can no longer suppress. Even before my father got sick, I've been curious about intuition. As a young child, I remember having a sense of knowing about events before they would happen. I would get this gut feeling around certain people who had ill intentions. Eventually, my mom took me to the pediatrician who said I was just making up stories for attention. I decided that it was best to shut down whatever intuition I had at the time and just tried to fit in. Years later, in the mid-90s, when I was just out of college, I had an intriguing encounter with a psychic named Denise Gazzardo. She was a friend of a friend who lived in a farmhouse an hour and a half outside of Chicago. In an era before Google, she managed to tell me things about my career and relationship at the time that nobody outside my immediate circle could have known. I racked my brain for weeks trying to figure out how she could have gathered the information ahead of time. When I was working for CBS, I shared my paranormal interests with a colleague who admitted that he too was curious about mediums and psychics. While on location, on assignment in London, he'd heard about a medium doing an event around the corner from our hotel. We had some time to kill before our interviews with Julia Roberts, so we decided to go see what it was all about. And when we mentioned to the locals we were going to see a medium, nobody seemed fazed. It was as normal to them as if we'd said we were going to the movies. I soon realized that the stigma attached to mediums and psychics was much more common in the United States than it is in Europe. The event was a tiny room with about 50 chairs facing a platform and a very intimate stage. The medium stood in front of the crowd, keeping her hands cupped together as she addressed the audience. She had white hair and a Scottish accent and a sweet disposition. I don't even remember her name. She wasn't selling any books and didn't seem to be well known outside of her small community. She was very specific with every message she delivered. There was nothing vague like, "I see a man, he's sending love." But she would say, "I have Sue Ellen here. She loves the blue shoes you wore at the funeral." I was amazed at her details and kept looking for wires, wondering if she had a little microphone in her ear giving her information. She had one statement that she repeated often as she nodded to the ear in gratitude after getting messages. "I know what you're seeing that way." Although with her Scottish accent, people had trouble making it out. The most emotional message she gave that day was for one couple who had lost their young daughter. She described what the daughter was wearing the day she died, and even gave details about the shape and color of the stained glass window where the father prayed to his daughter every morning. After the messages were delivered, a huge weight seemed to lift off both their shoulders like an anchor when it comes out of the water. I followed that couple out of the hall when the session was over, just watching their interactions to see if perhaps they could have been planted in the audience. Judging by the way they held each other for dear life as they wept on the sidewalk, I knew right away they were just two parents looking for a sign that their beloved daughter was safe and out of pain. This book is a collection of evidence and encounters with well-known authors in this spiritual space. The subjects range from mediums, I see dead people, to psychics, I predict your future, to medical intuitives, I can look at you and see why you're ill. Some of them cross many platforms with multiple abilities, while others focus on one specific gift. All of them believe their gifts to be very real. The Manhattan medium Thomas John says, "Intuition is like singing in the shower. Some people are really good at it, and other people not so good, but everyone can do it." So we all have intuitive abilities. For some of us, it comes easier than for others. And for those who chose to shut down their intuition or believe that reaching out to mediums goes against the Bible, I'd like to share this email that was sent to me by a Roman Catholic priest after I told him I get a lot of flack from religious people who feel I'm going to hell for doing this research. The Bible is full of references to mediums, he wrote. 1 Sam 28 acknowledges the existence of mediums in Israel, and while Saul had forbidden the practice, he himself went to a medium to call up the spirit of Samuel. And Samuel is annoyed that he's been called back. But he did come back and speak to Saul through the medium. I also think the resurrection of Jesus confirms this further stage of existence. When Jesus appears to Mary Magdalene, he tells her not to touch him because he has not yet ascended to the Father. There is plenty in the scriptures to assure you and anyone else who will listen that you are not a kook for exploring this, and that you are in touch with something very real. I'm not trying to force my beliefs onto anyone else. I'm just sharing exactly what happened to me with each encounter so people can draw their own conclusions. And while some names have been changed to protect the identity of those who don't wish to be recognized, everything in this book is true. So as you read the chapters, and perhaps come across stories that might seem too strange for your current belief system to embrace, remember this. The dropping of nuclear bombs was a spectator sport in the deserts of Nevada back in the 1950s. We do what we think is best based on the knowledge we have at the time. Asking questions and gathering information is the only way to expand our consciousness. And you just can't make this shit up. Jenniffer Weigel. Thank you, everybody. I will be outside signing books, and please come to one of my shows.